Hi, and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. So we're up to Alara Reborn. Now, before we start to take a look at the set, just something I thought I'd mention in terms of the release schedule of upcoming videos. So this week, it's the same as usual. I'm going to do a Set Musings for Alara Reborn. I'll do a Commander Durdle episode and then also a Friday artwork episode on Alara Reborn and what cards in paper for the ones that I pulled at the time that I opened packs of Alara Reborn, ones that I think are interesting artwork wise. So I know that the Friday artwork video are proving very popular, so I'll keep those up with the sets I think going forward. And then if I get anything like non-magic that's interesting, I think I may have to just do a fourth video on certain weeks. So yeah, no real problem with doing that, but just yeah, so the artwork videos have proven really interesting, I think, for both me and viewers of the channel. So yeah, that's for this week. Next week, obviously, we'd be getting on to M10, so Magic 2010, because my plan is going forward to start including core sets regularly in the Set Musings, because from M10 onwards, obviously core sets were 50-50 new cards and old cards. And as a consequence, there's lots of interesting things crop up, both from in terms of cycles and other themes that began manifesting themselves in core sets, which we hadn't necessarily seen before in Magic's history. So yeah, so that's next, but I'm going to take a week's break before I do that. So next week, after the 3 videos planned for this week go up, there will be a break of a week where I won't post any Magic videos, and then we're going to move into M10 and just carry on through as we have been doing. If at some point it turns out that the Streets of New Capennia gets spoiled, fully spoiled, then I will put out a Set Musings for that, for the new set. I'm not quite sure when that might happen. It may well happen next week, in which case there will be one video go up, which will be that. But if not, then I'll just include it as an additional video as part of the weekly 3 videos that go out on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I'll just slide in a Streets of the New Capennia video as and when I need to do it. But obviously I can't do that until 1, the set's been fully spoiled on Scryfall, and 2, I have some idea of the cycles and the total themes of the set, which I normally glean through MTG Wiki. So again, I just have to make sure that the appropriate article on there is as complete as it can be, in order for me to slice and dice in an appropriate manner. So anyway, that's what's coming up over the next few weeks. So let's get back to the set in question, which is Alara Reborn. This is an interesting set. Now, as we've been going through these Set Musings, obviously for Magic sets you will see that occasionally a set may be biased in a certain way in terms of, say, a type of card. So you might see sets where the set has a higher proportion of, say, artifacts or enchantments, or there might be, say, a higher proportion of legendaries, or a higher proportion of certain types of creatures like tribal. But then you might find that on occasion with Magic they go all in with a certain theme. So in the past, if you remember, in one of the set Musings, there was a set which was pretty much all creatures in terms of the spells. I think it was actually all creatures. And so occasionally you'll see that sort of all-in theme. I go all in with the same thing. Well, it happened in Alara Reborn. What was interesting is they went all in with multicolour. So there's no monocolour cards in the set. So the first and so far only set in the history of Magic which consists entirely of multicoloured cards. And I now remember Legions. Legions was the set which consists entirely of creatures. As a consequence in the set, and we won't really go into it in any depth, but there is a slight change in the way that these are numbered versus their alphabetical sorting because of the multicoloured aspect of this set. And you'll see in a moment that does break down in certain different types of the way the multicoloured manifests itself, which we'll get onto in a moment. There are no lands or colourless artefacts in the set, so nothing like that. And there were no Planeswalker cards, which is pretty unusual for everything going forward in Magic's history. Once Planeswalkers were introduced into Magic, they tended to crop up a lot more in sets, to the point where every set had a Planeswalker in it of some description, group of Planeswalkers. This set didn't. It did have legendaries, but just not Planeswalkers. So, stuff to look out for. Well, the aforementioned all multicoloured. Hybrid manners in here as well, which we'll take a look at how that breaks down. We've got Cascade, Cycling, Devour, Exalted and Unearth. So I've highlighted this before with the previous set, but what's interesting about this block is there is a bit more carryover from each set in the block with the keywords and abilities that had been used in the other sets in terms of the volume of cards. So out of those, Cascade was the mechanic that was introduced. The other thing was they did, and you noticed this with the other sets, is they, in the case of the returning ability, Cycling, and there's one I'm thinking of, they added a twist, which you'll see as we go through. And obviously Cycling was combined with other abilities as well. So let's go through this. You can see there's a fair number of ways I've sliced and diced this, but it's not as, there's about 40 different tabs here, I think. So 145 cards in here. And you can see we're straight into multicolour because that was the only thing in the set. There was quite a few horrors in this set, I noticed, as I was scrolling through. I'm going to see if I can maybe focus a little bit on the Friday artwork episode on horrors. Also a number of interesting beasts as well in here. We get onto the coloured artefacts as well. Yeah, these beasts that we had. Violent Outburst was in the set, and Cascade, which we'll come on to. Grizzly Pride Mage. But yeah, again, some cool artwork. We've got Maelstrom Pulse in the set. Putrid Leech. Again, if like me you are watching Magic events on YouTube when this set was in standard, you'll probably recognise a lot of these cards as being quite prevalent in a lot of decks. And you can see a number of cards also reference the particular shard as well. There's a legendary there. And another one. So yeah, every single one was multicoloured. Just to prove that, you can see if we search on multicoloured, 145 cards. That's the whole of the set. 145 cards in the set. So how does that break down in terms of hybrid? I mentioned hybrid and other things. So if we look at the hybrid cards, there's 15 hybrid cards in the set. There are no two-colour hybrid cards. So that means to say that with the hybrid, there's either going to be a colour and then a hybrid mana, or a colour and a hybrid mana, or more than two hybrid mana. So no single CMC hybrids here, or anything with a two-colour hybrid in this set. But a lot of two-colour cards that weren't hybrid, 105 in fact. So you'll notice if you opened packs of these, you definitely saw two colours being a thing, two-colour non-hybrid. And that was sort of part of the whole storyline, if you like. The fact that, you know, we'd had this breakdown of the shards, this sort of cataclysmic situation where all the 5 shards of Alara had now merged, and sort of out of this came a slightly different theme in terms of colours. So in terms of 3 colours, this is where the hybrid kicks in. So you can probably see if you look here, there's a certain template, if you like, to the CMC. So all 15 cards that were hybrid, they were all in fact 3-colour hybrid, composed of a hybrid colour and then another colour. And so looking at this, you can see, look, white, blue, black, blue, black, red, black, red, green, red, green, white, and then green, white, blue. So the shards are still there, but just in a different form. But there are also 3-colour cards that weren't hybrid. So 24 of those. And as we scroll through these, you can start to see sort of where the legendaries are hanging out. And we'll come back to that later. But again, if you look, white, blue, black, blue, black, red, black, red, green. Slightly as well here, look, slightly different breakdown on this one in terms of the colour balance of the CMC. Red, green, white. And then finally green, white, blue. There's also a 5 colour as well. Only one Maelstrom Nexus. So, Cascade, the new one. So with Cascade, when you play this spell, remove cards from the top of your library from the game until you remove a non-land card that costs less. You may play it without paying its mana cost. Put the removed cards on the bottom in a random order. So you can see when you're obviously putting a Cascade deck together, you want to be thinking carefully about CMC costs in relation to the cards that have Cascade and those that you want to cascade into, I suppose. But also, if you look at the way this is worded, so it says when you play this spell, remove the cards from the top of your library from the game until you remove a non-land card that costs less. You may play it without paying its mana cost. Put the removed cards on the bottom in a random order. So if the card also has Cascade that you've cascaded into, the process repeats itself. So things can get out of control. And you can see, not surprisingly here, we have Cascade combined with other things, but there's actually only 12 Cascades in the Cascade cards in the set. Some Bloodbraid Elf. What was there a rare? Yeah, so the rares with Cascade was the Maelstrom Nexus. I mentioned about cycling. So 15 cards with cycling, but some interesting things going on here. In that we had, I suppose what you would call regular cycling, so where it's just like cycling and then a cost, and you can see a number of these do have hybrid mana as their cycling cost, so you could pay for cycling here either white or blue, and with cycling you discard the card and then you draw a card. But we also had plain cycling and island cycling and swamp cycling and forest cycling and mountain cycling. And for those, you pay 2, discard the card, search your library for, in this case, plains or an island card, because this is plains and island cycling. Reveal it, put it into your hand and shuffle your library. And you can see, we'll see in a moment, there is some cycles going on here. Excuse the pun. Yeah, cycles of cycling cards, particularly the land cycling. In fact, I think that was, just looking through here, yeah, we got a couple of cycling cycles. Right, there's Devour, just 3 cards with Devour. So just as a refresher, you've got Devour and then a cost, or let's say a cost, Devour and then a number, so that's the number of times this +1/+1 counter effect gets repeated. So with Devour, as this card comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature comes into play with that many +1/+1 counters on it. This has got devoured 2, so you get twice as many. There's another enter the battlefield effect on it. For this one, what this does, at the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 red and green dragon creature token with flying and devour 2 into play. So that's generating creature tokens with devour on them. That have devoured 2. Exalted. So this was this we'd seen previously, and with Exalted, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Unearth, just 3 unearth cards. With those, there's a cost involved, and then you return this card from the graveyard to play. It gains haste. Remove it from the game and at the end of turn, or if it would leave play, unearth only as a sorcery. And then back to cycling again. So, on to our actual cycles in the set. Just want to make sure there's nothing else I really want to add to that, I don't think, at this point. Well, the only other thing is, of course, with the presence of hybrid mana in the set, with certain cards that have it, it does give you a bit more of a flexibility in terms of what cards can be played in certain decks. So with that hybrid mana, you've got a 3-colour card effectively in terms of its colour identity, but with the hybrid mana there, you only actually need to play if you're talking about 3-colour cards with hybrid mana, 2 of the colours, because one of the colours is hybrid, so you can play either of those colours and it's still castable. So that just gives you a little bit extra flexibility there. So we had a cycle of allied coloured equipments, uncommon, and they cost they were 2 colour in the casting cost. So white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, and then green, white. 3 of them were CMC of 2. The other 2 were CMC of 3. And they have an uncoloured equip cost on them. So coloured to cast, but mana of any colour to equip. And you can see the sort of abilities that it imparts on the creature ties to the colour identity. I'm just looking to see whether, there's some it's a bit stronger than others. So you could argue this one obviously is very heavily a red thing. Whereas other ones like the Behemoth Sledge, we've got +2/+2, so we've got Pump and Lifelink and Trample in there. So the border posts. Common artifacts, they cost 1 and then 2 of the particular allied colours. They have an alternative casting cost of paying 1 mana of any colour and then bouncing a basic land back to your hand as an alternative cost. They come into play tapped regardless of how you cast it, and then once they untap you can then obviously tap them for the appropriate mana of the 2 colours. Cycle of Cascade commons, so yeah, common spells which have Cascade on them. And you'll also notice that they were all, 1 in each of the 2 allied colours. And you'll see that with these cycles. Obviously we're dealing with a multicoloured set, so the cycles at this point are all 2-coloured cycles. And so far you'll also notice they're all allied colours. There was a cycle of hang on, if I jumped ahead of myself here. In actual fact, I accidentally missed one out. Let me remedy that. So, pretty easy to do. Yeah, in addition to the common cascades, there were a cycle of uncommon cascades. Cycle of cross-shard creatures, so they're all at common. They cost the appropriate amount of allied colours there, including in some cases some mana of any colour, and they're flavoured to be a blend of the 2 shards that form its colour. That are sort of featured in its colour. So you can see we've got some artifact stuff here. We've got, the power 5 thing going on, and various other, the unearthed thing going on as well, and the exalted going on. That's the sort of things I mean here. So dual land cyclists, so this one's got plain cycling, island cycling, this one island cycling, swamp cycling, mountain cycling, forest cycling, and then forest cycling and plain cycling. They're all common, they're all creatures, they all cost 4, and then the mana, the allied colour mana. The only one that doesn't have ability on it, so this one has Defender, we've got Fear, Haste, nothing for the Valley Rannet. The Power Recluse has Reach, and I suppose, these 2 are both, 5 power or greater. So the other thing that there was, we got Sanctum Plough Beast. There was also within those cyclists, there was also a number of what would you call hybrid cyclists. So they were all common spells that cost the allied colours, and they cycle for the allied colours. So if I just go back to the cyclists, and then we can sort of see how that manifests itself in the set. So of the 15 cyclists, you can see we've got Glass Dusk Hulk, Architects of Will, Monstrous Carabid, Deadshot Minotaur, and then Sigil of the Naven Gods. Now you probably notice that there's 3 lots of 5 cycles in here, 3 lots of 5 cycles of cyclists. So we've got these ones which are cycling off of hybrid mana. We've got the ones that have the land cycling. And then we've actually got some 3-coloured cycles, which I'll come on to in a moment, once we get to those. So there was also enemy coloured commons that were a cycle. So you can see here slightly different. These are in the enemy colours, and they were Vectress Dominator, Magefire Wings, Putrid Leech, Ceridon Yearling, and Wind Cottle. Cycle of hybrid gold commons. So you've got, and I think I pointed this out earlier on, there's your shard in the hybrid mana. So blue, black, red, green, red, green, white, green, white, blue, and then back to white, blue, black. And similar thing at uncommon, you can see there, and cycle of those. So it's another one of those sets where some of the cycles are purely based around the colour breakdown in the CMC, and beyond that there's nothing else in the templating which would indicate that it's a cycle. So that is the cycle, the fact that it's uncommon and it has this hybrid representation of the shard. There's your main colour there, and there's the 2 side as well. It's another way of looking at it. There's a cycle of blades. So these were all 2/1 creatures. And again, they've got this this shard representation in the CMC through hybrid mana, combination of hybrid mana and like a monocolor cost. But what you can see here is in the ability, so each of them has this. As long as you control another multicolored permanent, this creature gets +1/+1 and has something. And you can see it doesn't care about the color combination, it's just as long as it's multicolored. So for this one, for Esper, we get +1/+1 and flying. For the Grixis we get the pump and death touch. For Jund we get the pump and haste. Naya, it's the pump and shroud, and then the Bant one, it's pump and first strike. Moving on to non-hybrid 3 colours. So cycle of mythic legends, because of course mythics were a thing by now. I had them for a few sets. Mythic rares, legendary creature costing appropriate mana of any colour in the case of the first 4, and then 3 of the shard. Genera is the lowest casting cost, which just has the shard cost in it. Shard coloured uncommons. So yeah, uncommon spells that cost, or have in the cost, the shard colours. Again, you can see there's one here that has purely that, and the rest have additional mana casting costs of any colour. And then we have the last of those 3 cycles of cycling cards. We have the Sojourners. So each of these common creatures costs the shard, and then some of them an additional cost of any colour. And it has cycling, and then for 2, and the central, the main colour of the shard. Discard this card, draw a card. But also you'll notice in the template, all of them, so when you cycle them, something happens. So when you cycle it, or it's put into a graveyard from play, you may tap or untap a target permanent. In the case of this one is a graveyard thing, this one is a damage thing, this one is a pump thing, and this is a token thing. So yeah. Interesting to see in this cycle, we do actually have some ability aspects which repeat themselves across the cycle. And you can see the relationship between the cycling cost and the actual shard cost here. So do they call it the middle, the primary colour. Okay, so there were 10 mythics in the set. We've seen that 5 of these were part of a cycle. So just looking at the ones that weren't part of the legendary creature cycle, we've got Defiler of Souls, Dragon Broodmother, Lord of Extinction, Sphinx of the Steel Wind, and then Maelstrom Nexus. And as we saw earlier, Zen Triplets, Thraxmunda, Karthus, Uriel and Janari were part of that cycle of mythic legendaries. 86 creatures in the set. Meddling Mage was reprinted from Plane Shift. Other notable cards, several we've seen already, like Bloodbraid Elf, Casali Pride Mage, Thopter Foundries in this set, Ural the Miststalker, Mael's Aria, which was an alternative win condition. As the enchantment, we'll see if we pick that up as we go through the enchantments. Sphinx of the Steel Wind, and yeah, for that I think that's the main ones. But again, we might see those as we go through. So 86 creatures. I'm just going to scroll through here just in case there's anything else. Got Wall of Denial here. 08 wall. And I mentioned there's a number of very interesting beasts in here. Looks like pretty cool artwork. Oh, there's our Bloodbraid Elf. Sigil Behemoth. So there were just 5 auras here. And of them, 4 of them were attached to creatures. Could be attached to creatures. One of them was a land aura. You can see that imparted additional mana capabilities onto the particular land that it was enchanted on. So these were the non-aura enchantments. And in here we should have an alternate win condition. Here we go. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control if you control a creature with power 5 or greater. Then you gain 10 life if you control a creature with power 10 or greater. Then you win the game if you control a creature with power 20 or greater. This came up in an episode of Commander Durdle, I believe. An earlier set in this block. When we were looking at, I think, a high power theme. There's a variety of different enchantment effects here. Those are, as I mentioned at the start, of course, all of these enchantments, all of these artifacts are coloured artifacts, multicoloured artifacts. And you can see within this 10 we have here, we have the cycle of the border posts, but we've got another 5 interesting artifacts, and there's our Thopter Foundry. And there are 15 artifact creatures as well. Of which, one was a legendary. Zen triplets. 6 pieces of equipment, including some legendary equipment. Unscythed Killer of Kings. and you can see, pretty recognise as some of these did form part of an earlier cycle we were looking at. Not necessarily a cycle of artifacts, but just a cycle of a certain colour combination. 12 instants. And some interesting stuff here, because we've got this multicoloured identity. So we have terminate, some black red, destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. We've got this card here, which is double negate, which allows us to counter up to 2 target spells. Intimidation, bolt, 3 damage to target creature. Other creatures can't attack this turn. There's an interesting red-white spell here as well, instant speed, that destroys all blocking creatures and all block creatures. So this interesting conditional mass removal. And Zealous Persecution. We've got this interesting 4/2 pump spell with trample as well. So white-blue counter spell with a condition on it and an additional effect. And we've got a blue-black counter spell, which is modal. It's counter and graveyard recursion or return. 16 sorceries. Including Maelstrom Pulse. But again, interesting combinations of things relating back in many ways back to the colour combinations. Destroy target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent. It's in black-green. Identity Crisis in white-black. You remove all cards in target player's hand and graveyard from the game. Soulquake. Return all creatures in play and all creature cards in graveyards to their owner's hand. It's in blue-black. And look at all the stuff on here. So name an on-land card. Target player reveals his or her hand. Thought Hemorrhage deals 3 damage to that player for each card with the name revealed this way. Search that player's graveyard, hand and library for all cards with that name and remove them from the game. And that player shuffles his or her library. Yeah, there's quite a few here with some graveyard interactions. What's this one? This looks interesting. It's a tutor card where it's dependent on the converted mana cost. Okay, so back to this. I was just thinking, I don't know whether I need to go through the set as a whole again. I think we've probably covered quite a lot of the different areas, because it's a small set again. You get to see quite a bit when I slice through all of these different things. So we'll dive straight into the cost of the cards. So most expensive card currently in the set, this printing, is Ural the Miststalker, $21. It's only ever printed in Alara Reborn. 2 red, green, white, so 5/5. It can't be the target spells or abilities your opponents control. It gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it. Leash Lord of Unks, $15. Interesting set of abilities. Oh, here's the alternate win condition, $13. Dragon Broodmother. So at this point we've just dipped below $10. What else have we got? Lord of Extinction, Nemesis of Reason, Zen Triplets. Yeah, so we're definitely getting the legends bubbling to the top cost wise. But you know, I know it's a small set, but not a ton of cards over $10. And then just let's look at the EDH Rec breakdown. So yeah, no surprise here. Terminate, Griselli Pride Mage, interesting utility on this. Maelstrom Pulse, Time Sieve, sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. Dragon Broodmother, Wargate, Wall of Denial, Soul Manipulation, Maelstrom Nexus, Behemoth Sludge, Mage Slayer, Thopter Foundry, Bloodbraid Elf, and so on. We've got Finest Hour here as well, and the Nemesis of Reason. I think I do have the artwork for this, or a card in paper with the artwork. I was always fascinated by the cottles in the set as well. Okay, so that's the set. That's Alara Reborn. Quick look at the theme decks, or intro packs as they're called now. Again, this bizarre 41 cards, of which the 41st was a foil. So, you can see what they've done here is, with this particular cycle of 5, they're concentrating on the 2 colour combination. There, and those would be, I believe, yeah, they're all allied colours by the look of things. Yeah. Yeah. So what's this one? Land in the Sky. And again, some of these are going to be pulled from the previous sets in the block. You'll also notice we've got Terramorphic Expanse in these. So Filigree Angel was our 41st, that was the foil one, and we've got Aven Mimeomancer. We've got Lich Lord of Unks, and Nemesis of Reason. Lich Lord is the foil. What does that do? Ethereum Artifacts and Necromancy. So yeah, they're trying to thematically combine 2 shards. Jund Grixis, so this coming together of the shards. Thopter and our Lightning Reaver for Dead Ahead. Rage and Necromancy. Rumbler, Naya and Jund, Spellbreaker Behemoth and Blitz Helion. And then Eternal Siege, Bantan Naya. Which is Dauntless Escort and Knight of Alara. So I'm assuming what's going on here is it must be the shard overlap that is the thing, yeah. So that's the 2 colours come from the shard overlap. as you move around the colour pie, around the colour pie. Okay. Just thinking if there's anything I really want to add to this. Probably not. So, in terms of... Ooh, oh, I know what I did. So with this, this week's pull from Shards of Alara. So here's the 180 cards. I was lucky enough in my pool to get a Karthus, Tyrant of Jun, so we'll go with that. And when I come to shoot the episode, obviously I need to remove all of the off-colour stuff. Over in the sideboard, I've also just pre-prepared a couple of cards that I thought were interesting, and I'll get onto that when we come to actually record the episode. But I just thought you want a heads up here in terms of what I'm building around, what was in the pool, what turned out to be the legend. And then just looking quickly down here. So that'll be Wednesday's episode. Again, it's a small set, so you can see there's a number of multiple copies of various commons and uncommons here as well. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next episode.